Revealed. 5 sinister rules of a haunted restaurant for monsters that will terrify you. Sarah had heard the whispers about the hungry wolf, but it didn't hit her until now. This diner, cloaked in shadows and cheap coffee, was where she'd be spending her nights. Bills piled high, Lily needed new shoes for school, and here she was, stepping into a place seeping with dark rumors. The first night felt like stepping into a haunted dream, where every laugh was a whisper from the other side. Never sit in a booth, the waitress had said, her eyes wide with dread. Trust me, you'll thank me later. It was just one of the 5 rules that filled the air with an almost tangible fear. Muffled laughter echoed through the dimly lit diner. The customers huddled like lost souls. Each one glanced worriedly at the booth Sarah found herself drawn to. As the clattering of dishes transformed into ghostly echoes, she tried to shake off the unease. Just superstitions, she told herself. But then came the first jolt, a shadow passing too close, a lingering feeling of dread that curled in the pit of her stomach. The second rule echoed in her head. Never order the daily special. Sarah chuckled nervously, but the laugh felt hollow. It was simply meatloaf, how bad could that be? She watched as a man at the counter took the special. His eyes rolled back as he choked on his first bite, a claw-like hand shooting over his mouth. Was it choking? Or was it something else? The laughter around her turned faint, distant, like it belonged to someone else. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Each shift morphed the diner's atmosphere into something altogether sinister. Always wash your hands before entering. The cook would remind her with a sly smile that always made the hairs on her neck stand on end. Tonight, that rule screamed louder as she watched patrons vanish before her eyes. Their plates left untouched, steaming, like lost souls forgotten. A sickening sensation twisted in her gut as she imagined Lily drawing shadows in her sketchbook. Those same clawed fingers creeping into her child's innocent art. The tension surged. The clock struck midnight, ringing like the toll of doom. A scream pierced the air, raw and chilling, silencing the diner. Glass shattered on the floor. It felt as if the very walls were closing in around her. She could feel it, the last rule materializing before her: never trust the cook. As his eyes met hers, a deep pit of dread bloomed in her stomach. He wasn't just the cook. He was the puppeteer, and she and Lily were strings pulled tight. Heart racing, Sarah searched for an escape route, but it felt more like a trap. She stumbled upon a hidden door at the back. Sobbing laughter came from beneath. A mother's love called for her daughter. Those shadows in Lily's pictures weren't just figments of imagination. They were there, waiting, gnashing teeth behind that door. She grasped the handle, her breath catching. Would she enter the darkness and uncover the truth? Or would they both become shadows trapped in the hungry wolf forever? The doorknob felt icy under Sarah's trembling fingers, every heartbeat echoing in her ears. Images of Lily, innocent and carefree, swirled in her mind, a stark contrast to the hellish atmosphere of the diner. She hesitated. Behind that door, terror and truth awaited. Would she truly risk stepping into the unknown? A muffled gasp, like a whispered plea, escaped from the other side. It pulled at her heart with an urgency she couldn't ignore. The diner's laughter faded completely, replaced by an oppressive silence. Her conscience screamed at her to turn back, yet instinct drove her forward. She twisted the handle, the door creaking open like a grave being disturbed. The staircase descended into darkness, each step damp and chilling. The air thickened. She could taste the fear. Flickering shadows danced on the walls, creating the illusion of reaching hands, clawing their way to escape. "Lily," she called, her voice echoing dead no answer. Panic surged, filling her lungs like a vice. She moved down the steps, her pulse pounding against the silence. Flickering lights illuminated figures in the gloom, huddled shapes, clutching their faces as if in despair. They looked almost human, twisted and warped, shadows trapped in their own misery. Suddenly, a cold breeze rushed past her, whispering secrets that chilled her to the bone. "They're hungry," it seemed to say, an echo of faint laughter intertwining with the wind. Her breath quickened. The cook's grin danced behind her sight, a predator hiding in plain view. "Get out. You shouldn't be here," a hoarse voice croaked from one of the shadows. Sarah stumbled back, heart racing. It was a woman, her eyes wide with terror. "You don't know what you're dealing with." He takes another piercing scream cut her off. It was filled with dread, one that morphed into a chilling laugh, rich and cruel. The shadows shifted, materializing into grotesque figures, eyes hollow, mouths stretched into disturbing grins that never touched their grim faces. She darted back up the staircase, panic propelling her forward. Yet the shadows began to crawl closer, their cold fingers skimming the edges of her clothes. She felt their hunger, the desperation, the terrible longing for freedom. But their freedom came at a cost, one that demanded a sacrifice. "Come back," the woman yelled, struggling against chains anchoring her to the floor. "We can help you." They all feed, but the words melted in the air, and her eyes filled with pleading terror as a clawed hand reached for Sarah. With each shaky stumble up the staircase, Sarah heard her own fear over the din. She burst through the hidden door, slamming it shut behind her. The laughter returned, more mocking now, echoing through the diner, vibrating the very walls. Sarah could feel the eyes watching her, hungry and knowing. "Sit in the booth. You can't escape," a new voice hissed from the darkness, one that felt familiar yet ethereal, cutting through the din like a knife. Her heart sank as she turned, realizing the truth she could barely grasp. It wasn't just about the diner or her daughter, it was about a choice she had yet to make. Lily's laughter resonated in her mind as the shadows danced closer to her own reality. When morning broke, would everything be as it was? Or would she awaken to yet another nightmare? The diner remained, waiting for its next patron. What would Sarah choose when the final moment arrived? The oppressive silence felt heavier, like a weight on Sarah's chest, each breath a struggle against the suffocating air. She pressed her back against the door, shivering as the laughter of the diner patrons turned to a low, menacing hum. It wasn't just noise. It was a living entity, feeding on her fear. "Come sit," the voice beckoned again, softer now, coaxing her as if it were a friend. But Sarah had no friends here, not anymore. Not with the shadows looming, the shapes of suffering pressing against the walls like trapped animals. Despair clawed at her resolve. She pounded her fists against the wooden door, heart racing. "I will not stay. I'll find Lily." The echo of her own cries felt mocking, fading into empty air that swallowed her words. "Lily," she shouted, searching the room. Desperation fueled her as she squinted into the dimly lit corners, where twisted echoes of the nearly human shapes lingered. "Where are you? Help us," they whispered in unison, an unsettling harmony that sent chills down her spine. Shadows shifted, elongating and writhing like snakes ready to strike. They extended skeletal fingers, almost pleading, yet there was an undercurrent of malice. "Don't listen," the woman from the depths of the shadows cried out again, struggling against her chains, tears carving through the dirt on her face. "They'll take you too. They want your light." Cold dread twisted in Sarah's stomach. "My light?" But before the woman could respond, jagged laughter erupted again, cutting through the air like broken glass. The shadows egged her on, feeding off her confusion. They surrounded her, swirling closer with an insatiable hunger, the very air thick with a foul stench of despair. Darkness pooled around her, blurring her vision. She felt the cool breath of the shadows brush against her skin, caressing her with the promise of their sinister intent. "Stay, be one of us," they hissed, voices slithering into her ears. "No," she gasped, adrenaline surging through her veins. She pushed through the crush of distorted humanity, stumbling back toward the steps, her legs shaking. The last remnants of her sanity clung to her as she tore through the door again, her heart screaming at her to flee. But the diner's atmosphere had shifted, a tangible force pressing against her, blocking her way. Each step back felt like a betrayal. The booth seats creaked ominously, the thick varnish gleaming in the faint light, beckoning her to sit. The path behind her blurred in a haze of dread. The diner had become a maze, and she was lost within it. "Don't go, Sarah," a voice soft, familiar drifted through the shadows. It was Lily. "I'm here." Her breath caught in her throat. "Lily?" Fingers of smoke curled around her, the shadows retreating for a moment as if taking a breath, leaving only the chilling, languid whisper of her daughter's voice hanging in the air. But as she turned toward the sound, the flickering lights buzzed with a new intensity. Her eyesight sharpened, revealing a figure emerging from the darkness. It was her daughter, but something was off. "I need to eat," Mommy, Lily said, her voice a soft, eerie echo. As Sarah stood frozen, it dawned on her. The choice was not just hers to make. The laughter returned, uproarious and wild, filling her with an icy dread. She realized the diner had not just claimed her daughter. It demanded her loyalty. "Will you join us?" The shadows surged again, ready to drag her into their embrace. The woman sobbed from her corner, bones rattling against chains. "You must make a choice." Sarah's heart raced, pounding, hammering against the walls of her ribcage. She was faced with unimaginable terror: sacrifice herself or lose Lily forever. The booth called out, a siren's song, as she trembled at the threshold. What would it take to save her child from these ravenous shadows? In that moment, Sarah knew the night was far from over. What terrible price would the diner demand when the final choice awaited? Sarah's heart thudded, echoing the desperate cadence of her thoughts. The shadows swirled, swirling with an insatiable hunger, creating a ring of darkness that tightened around her like a noose. Every breath she took tasted bitter, tainted by dread, and surrounded by that insistent, chilling laughter which clawed at the edges of her sanity. "Lily!" She barely recognized her own voice, raw and pleading. But her daughter's figure stood there, unsteady on her feet, an unnatural glimmer in her eyes. A darkness had settled deep within Lily, a coldness that mirrored the shadows that craved her. They were connected now, bound by unfathomable fate. "I'm hungry, Mommy," each word dripped with something that felt like slime. It draped over Sarah's shoulders, pulling her toward the booth, each seat a promise of comfort that felt like an illusion. She wanted to believe this was her child, but fear gnawed at her gut. "No, no. I want tea, let you take her." The words burst from Sarah in a primal scream, bolstered by the fiery spark of her maternal instinct. She turned her head to the pleading woman, visible now in the dim light. What did they do to her? The woman's chains rattled as she swung toward Sarah, desperation etched into her gaunt features. "They feed on innocence, on love. Once they're inside, they twist it into something dark." A grotesque grin spread across Lily's face, revealing teeth that looked unnaturally sharp. "You'll join us, one TU, Mommy?" Her voice had warped into something unrecognizable, laced with mockery. Panicking, Sarah stumbled back, her eyes darting around the diner. Tables shifted, chairs clicked, and the shadows seemed to pulse with life. Just beyond the edges of the flickering lights, she could see more figures, now more lost souls, their eyes vacant, their mouths twisted in laughter as they beckoned her to draw near. "No," she cried, shaking her head violently. But deep inside, the voice was wavering. It called to her, whispering sweet promises of reuniting with Lily, of the warmth and safety found once again in her daughter's embrace. As the laughter crescendoed, a terrible realization washed over her. This was not simply a choice between herself and her daughter. It was a trial of her very essence. They wanted more than corporeal sacrifice. They wanted her spirit, her hope. Mommy Lily's voice was now layered with echoes, a fusion of her innocent plea and the sinister whisperings of the diner, with terror clawing at her throat. Sarah dashed toward the back of the diner, trying to find an exit, a way out of this nightmarish figment. But every step pushed her deeper into a labyrinthine horror. The familiar decor now twisted grotesquely, walls stretching into infinity, flickering lights casting grotesque shadows that danced with wicked delight. Help us! Join us, the voices intertwined, growing more urgent, siphoning her determination. Please, take her away, Sarah shouted to the bound woman. How can I save her? But all she received was another round of hollow laughter. The diner was mocking her. Suddenly, the lights blinked out entirely, plunging her into darkness. The air froze around her, locking her in place, swallowed by an unsettling hush. And then, in the absolute silence, a defiant thought emerged. Plan. She had something to fight with. Not just the will to save Lily, but the knowledge that she could resist. As the shadows stirred, restless and agitated, Sarah inhaled deeply. You want my light? Then come and take it. The laughter crescendoed, echoing in her ears. But she stood her ground, channeling every ounce of love, fear, and defiance. Lily, she shouted again. Fight them. The silence that followed felt thick with tension, the air crackling with anticipation. Then, a soft glow began to emanate from the shadows surrounding her, trembling and flickering like fragile candlelight. What would it reveal? The darkness shifted, shadows quivering like a wounded animal. And in that moment, Sarah perceived a glimmer of hope in the black abyss. But would it last? Would the diner yield to her? The very walls seemed to swirl, ready to envelop her whole. Will it break me or set me free? She wondered, the shadows converging, their hunger palpable. The decision ahead whispered. Would she have enough light left to save them both? The air crackled with energy, the swirling shadows stretching and writhing as if alive. They clamored for her light, a palpable force colliding against her resolve. Sarah felt the warmth flicker, a dying ember eager to be snuffed out. But in that moment, she chose to fan the flame. Lily, she cried again, the word more an incantation than a name. She held onto the memory of Lily's laughter, the warm glow of her innocent smile, a beacon in this blackness. Come back to me, the shadows hissed. They flowed closer, coiling around her ankles like serpents. Cold, clammy tendrils reached upward, teasing her with promises of surrender, beckoning her to succumb to the void. With her heart pounding against her rib cage, she pressed her hands to her temples, trying to block out the haunting whispers. You can't have her. She's mine. The shadows recoiled slightly, as if hit by an unseen force. They pulsed wider, more frantically, a horde clawing at the very essence of Sarah's spirit. The laughter morphed into cries of anguish. Join us, Sarah. A rush of air distorted the silence, an echo of familiar voices. Friends? Family? No, it was just the shadows using everything they could, trying to penetrate her defenses, planting seeds of doubt. Mommy, I can't see you. Lily's voice floated through the dark mist, thin and fragile. Help me hold on, Lily. I'm coming, Sarah shouted, forcing the words past her tightening throat. With every ounce of her being, she wrenched herself free from the grasp of despair, fueled by the need to save her girl. The flickering glow intensified in response. Shadows scattered, as if light had once more become a threat to their existence. Sarah focused, an internal warmth filling her chest. The memories surged. A birthday cake, bedtime stories, 1,000 moments of love. She breathed deeply, amplifying the pulse of light she felt within. Lily, if you can hear me, I need you to fight. Use your light. The air stirred again. There was a resistance rising. The flicker expanded, pushing back the encroaching dark, and inside the shadowy haze, Sarah saw vague shapes writhing in pain. Mommy! The voice grew clearer. I'm scared, don't be. Sarah's voice erupted, echoes bouncing off the walls of her mind. You are stronger than this. She stepped forward, and as she did, a barrier formed, a flash of brilliant light isolating her from the shadowy void. In that heartbeat, a face emerged from the darkness. A silhouette, warped and terrible, contorting into the shape of her daughter. Mommy? The echo felt heavy, riddled with confusion. Help me please. Sarah's chest tightened, seeing the glimmer in Lily's eyes barely shining through the darkness. It was no longer just a test of her will, but a race against time. She could sense the shift in the atmosphere. Something ancient and furious was responding to her pleas. "Fight!" she shouted to the child trapped within the dark. "Wake up! You are not lost!" The laughter turned to wails, shrill and harrowing, the shadows tentatively dwindling as Lily's ghostly form wavered. A bright light pulsed from Sarah's heart, spreading warmth. But what was this fear gaining momentum, clawing back into their space? Was it the darkness, threatened, or something deeper? Suddenly, from the corner of her eye, Sarah saw the flicker of something more sinister, a yawning abyss threatening to explode outward. The din of malevolent spirits rose, drowning out reason, drowning out hope, a collision of chaos against her will. What if we never escape? Sarah's resolve trembled at that thought, just for a crack of a moment. The shadows lurched, sensing her wavering certainty, clawing hungrily at her resolve. Together, we can fight this, but would their bond hold steady enough to tear apart the very fabric of this nightmare? With every ounce of her being, she had to find out. But the creeping dread lurked like a hungry predator. Was time starting to slip away? Her next move would decide it all. But would the shadows relent? Or would they pull Lily back into the dark? Forever? The shadows recoiled, writhing as if struck. But they quickly regrouped, hungry for Sarah's hesitation. "Mommy!" Lily's voice drifted through, still clear yet echoed with despair. The monstrous form twisted within the darkness, revealing a face that was both familiar and distorted. Sarah's heart raced wildly, squeezing in her chest like a vice. "Stay with me," she cried, extending her hand toward the flickering light that outlined Lily's silhouette. The shadows snapped at her, igniting her fear anew. It was a grotesque sight, her daughter's innocent features twisted into something haunting, lips stretched into a twisted grin filled with malevolence. "I can help you. Just hold on." "Mommy, I can't breathe," Lily whimpered, her voice crackling like broken glass. The light around her shimmered, flickering like a faulty bulb, and for a moment, Sarah feared it would go out completely. She crouched down, bracing herself against the flood of shadows encroaching once more. A surge of cold prickled at her skin, icier than winter's breath. "You've always been my light, Lily. You have to fight." The shadows shivered with a frenzied hunger, swirling around her legs tighter, pulsing with anger as if aware they were losing ground. But Sarah's determination surged like a tsunami, drowning out their chaotic whispers. "Fight for us," she shouted, her hands trembling, blood rushing through her ears. Suddenly, a heartbeat, a steady, resolute rhythm pierced through the wails surrounding them. It was faint but undeniable. For a split second, the shadows faltered, recoiling just enough for Sarah to see a glimpse of what lay behind the veil. An endless vortex of swirling, blackened faces, all screaming silently. The malignant, hungry entities lurked just out of view, their mouths eternally gaping, longing for Sarah's warmth. "See them, Lily?" she yelled. "These shadows are scared. They're trying to confuse us. We are stronger together." The dark mist shimmered as if hesitating. Sarah grasped the moment, letting the flicker of hope blaze in her chest, the warm pulse of love that shouted louder than dread. She imagined their cozy evenings, giggles over board games, and the gentle light of their favorite stories before bed. "Breathe, Lily. Feel the love." Suddenly, the shadows shrieked, their dissonance ripping through her like shrapnel. Tendrils lashed out, slamming against her barrier, the force so immense it nearly broke her concentration. Sarah buckled, clutching her skull, but the fear ignited her resolve. Not now, not yet. With a roar, she pushed back, fortifying her barrier with every cherished memory, every moment of joy. Clinging on, she locked eyes with the warped reflection of her daughter. "Come back to me." For a heartbeat, the shadows stilled, as if caught in a fragile truce. The abyss flickered, revealing glimpses of the other world, thick and menacing, yearning for their souls. Sarah could sense it, something deeper than mere shadows, something primal watching her battle. But just then, a flicker of horror cut through the moment, a revelation crashing through. The shadows weren't merely feeding on fear. They were feeding on despair. What if they weren't after Sarah and Lily alone? What if they were trying to drag an entire world into this nightmare? It hit her, like ice water in her veins. No, I won't let them. A new wave of power surged through her, tight and electric. A raw scream erupted from the shadows, twisted and agonized, as the darkness recoiled in terror from her fierce light. Though they shrank, she felt the abyss push back, overwhelming and hungry. Sarah saved me, but were they too far gone? The shadows' gnashing teeth beckoned, a warning. And what if every second spent in darkness stole Lily further away from her? Can we win this? Sarah wondered, her breath shortening, panic threatening to rear its head once more. An unsettling thought nestled in her mind, creeping in with insidious whispers if they triumphed. What if something even worse awaited them on the other side? She swallowed hard. The glow from her heart dimmed momentarily, overshadowed by uncertainty. Stay close, Lily. I promise. We will find a way. But the shadows laughed, taunting, whispering promises of despair. And as the battle raged on, Sarah knew the decision before her could break their very souls or potentially save them both. What awaited them beyond the veil? Would they escape this horror, or would darkness consume them whole? The shadows wriggled violently, the air thick with suffocating dread. Sarah's heart thundered as she felt the pulse of darkness close in around her. Each moment stretched like a taut string ready to snap. A fresh wave of darkness rolled in, and the familiar form of Lily twisted in the murk, her voice a strained echo. "Mommy, I'm scared." Lily's face flickered like a dying flame, each word pulling Sarah further into despair. The abyss craved her fear, its grotesque tendrils flickering closer, gripping her ankles like icy chains. "Hold on, baby. I'm coming," Sarah shouted, her voice cracking as she surged upward. She had to break through the shadows wrapping around her limbs, squeezing tighter with each terrified breath she took. With a deep inhale, she summoned every ounce of love she held for her daughter. In that moment, the shadows recoiled, their insatiable hunger faltering under the fierce warmth blooming within her. "You are not alone, Lily. Fight back. Remember the park? Playing on the swings? The sun shining on your face?" Her words poured out like a lifeline, a reminder of innocence so easily snatched away. The shrieks of the shadows grew sharper, echoing through the chilling air as they scrambled to reclaim their hold. "You think you can save her?" they hissed, voices intertwining like a wretched choir. "Fear is what binds her to us." But Sarah stood taller, fueled by love and memory. "You're wrong," she yelled, her hands shimmering with a golden glow. "You thrive in fear, but we thrive together, in love." Before her words could settle, Lily's flickering form seemed to respond, the shadows wavering as if caught in resistance. The light that radiated from Sarah surged forward in a radiant wave, pushing back against the encroaching darkness. Sarah realized then that the shadows fed on more than fear, they thrived on the tears spawned from hopelessness. Gradually, a spark ignited in Lily's eyes, blooming like a flower breaking through cracks in hardened earth. "Mommy," she whispered, the resonance of her voice suddenly strong, filled with resolve. "I remember." The shadows quivered and writhed, a terrifying amalgamation of eyeless faces and stunted limbs. Their wailing grew frantic, panic sluicing through their ranks. "No, you cannot escape us. We are eternal. Then will be your end," Sarah replied, a fierce determination coursing through her veins. The warmth of every memory bolstered her resolve. Thanksgiving dinners, Christmas mornings, bedtime stories woven with laughter. She thrust her hands forward, unleashing the light that had conquered her fears. The shadows shrieked, voices intertwining in a cacophony of rage and desperation as they recoiled, their forms disintegrating into wisps of black smoke. But it was far from over. Wisps of darkness coalesced in the air, swirling with renewed fury. Recovering, the entities formed a massive, hellish silhouette, looming menacingly over Sarah and Lily. "Your strength matters not," it screeched, a formidable shadow that eclipsed hope itself. "You cannot fight what you do not understand." A chill ran down Sarah's spine, gnawing at her courage. What could it possibly mean? But before she could dwell further on the disquieting prospect, a powerful surge erupted from her center, and the shadows screeched in tandem, cascading downward. Each pulse sent shards of light piercing into the dark void, illuminating the horrors around them. But in that blinding flash, Sarah glimpsed something else behind the veil of terror, dark eyes watching her intently, shapes shifting silently in the depths. Were they waiting for the moment she faltered? "Lily!" she shouted as the darkness writhed, the silhouettes shifting, obscuring her vision. "Mommy! They're coming!" Lily's delicate voice trembled as if whispering a dreadful prophecy. Reality shattered around Sarah, splitting like glass under pressure. With a sudden, sickening lurch, the shadows began to swirl again, reforming with malice as if preparing for another strike. This time, their cries echoed with an unnatural hunger. What if this was merely the beginning of something more monstrous? Would they face this unknowable terror head-on? Or would they risk everything to try and escape it only to find sanctuary nothing more than an illusion? As the oppressive darkness pressed in around them again, Sarah tightened her grip on Lily's hand, knowing that every moment counted. They had to fight, but at what cost? The ground trembled beneath Sarah's feet as the shadows coiled closer. The air, thick and bitter, seemed to throb with the weight of impending doom. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but there was nowhere to go. The darkness swirled around them like a living entity, grasping at her from all sides. "Mommy, I'm scared." Lily's voice broke through the chaos, but this time it didn't crack. It rang with a clarity that sent ripples through the shadows as though ripples across water. "Keep talking to me, Lily," Sarah urged, feeling her heart race like a runaway train. "Think of something happy. The balloons, your drawings, the day we saw the rainbow." For every joyful thought Sarah evoked, the shadows cringed back but quickly surged again, eager to swallow the flicker of hope. The ground shook violently, and the shadowy mass loomed larger, a grotesque approximation of a creature formed from other people's fears. It let out a sound resembling a twisted laugh that echoed around them. "You think your memories will save you?" Taunted. "Memory is weaker than darkness." But Sarah had to believe otherwise. She dared to step closer, her aura flickering defiantly. "You don't know love. You only know how to take." Every pulse within her blazed with the power of her convictions. "Love is a light that pierces through your veil of gloom." With a sudden grasp in her gut, she realized these shadows were reflections of something deeper, something that had quieted her spirit long before tonight. They were fears unacknowledged, pain left to fester. Each fear fed the darkness like fuel to a fire. The shadows began to whisper again, but this time their voices sounded unsure, as if a crack had started to form in their relentless facade. "What is this? Why do we feel?" "Because you are nothing without my love," Sarah screamed, plunging her hands toward the void. Light burst from her palms, an explosion of warmth too bright, too real for the shadows to endure. The roar of their resistance became a wail of anguish, a sound so raw that it sent a tremor through Sarah's chest. For every wave of light she projected, another strand of shadow disintegrated into nothingness. "Mommy, I can feel it," Lily shouted, her small body engulfed by flickering energy. The scene shifted. It felt as though they were floating now, suspended in a tumult of light battling darkness. But the shadows still coiled around them, fighting back. "You cannot conquer us. We are the remnants of lost souls." Their cries twisted into a mocking chant, each word stinging like a slap, seeping through cracks in Sarah's burgeoning confidence. Suddenly, a chilling realization gripped her. "Lost souls?" she echoed, her heart pounding as the shadows seemed to weave into an image faces she recognized. Friends, family members who had drifted away, swallowed by their own despair. Each face paled against the suffocating black. "Lily," she exclaimed, spinning toward her daughter, whose eyes widened with dread. "We have to expose the truth. We cannot let them take anyone else." The darkness flickered, as if uncertain. Sarah sensed an opening that could lead her deeper into this terrifying truth. "They are made from the pain of others. We need to show them they are not forgotten." But before she could think further, a howling roar erupted. The shadow creature surged, its fury intensifying as it realized her intent. No, you cannot unleash what is chained within. A jolt of icy fear coursed through Sarah's veins. In that moment, the horror of it all struck her at full force. Would acknowledging these lost souls give them strength, or would it unleash a darkness they couldn't handle? With a rapid beat of her heart, Sarah clenched Lily's hand, ready to confront whatever came next. Together we'll face it. But as darkness surrounded them, tendrils gripping tighter, she couldn't shake the feeling that a much larger puzzle awaited them, one that could change their very existence. They had to move, but what could possibly break the cycle of fear? What unveiling awaited them that could either salvage or doom their souls? The howling intensified, a cacophony of despair that clawed at Sarah's sanity. The shadows shifted violently, transforming into jagged silhouettes, writhing in agitation. They weren't just obstacles, they were monsters birthed from agony and unrest. And now, they responded to her defiance with renewed vigor. "Mommy, it's getting closer." Lily's voice was a frantic whisper, trembling against the mounting dread. The warmth from Sarah's light flickered, her strength waning as the darkness pressed harder against them. Each tendril felt like ice, piercing her resolve. "Hold on to me, baby." Sarah gripped Lily's hand tighter, her heart hammering an erratic rhythm. "We can't let them win. Why are they so angry?" Lily's eyes were wide, reflecting not just fear but a strange understanding, as if she could sense the shadow's pain. Sarah hesitated, grappling with a truth she feared to acknowledge. "They're lost, Lily, just like some of us." The shadows paused, momentarily stalling as if considering her words. That flicker of doubt in their form seemed to glow against the pulsating darkness, a tiny spark in an overwhelming void. Yet, the moment passed, their confusion replaced by bitter rage. "You try to soothe us with lies. We are the memories of torment. You cannot heal what is beyond hope." With a sudden surge of courage, Sarah pushed back against the tide of despair. "What if I told you you don't have to be trapped in this pain? What if you can find peace?" The shadows hissed, recoiling slightly but still bewitchingly unwilling to relinquish their hold on the world. "Peace? There is no peace for those like us." Their voices twisted like barbed wire, full of anguish and anger, an echo of the bond that tied them to existence. "Mommy, please." Lily shook Sarah's arm, urgency thick in her voice. "They're hurting. They just want to be free." Tears brimmed in Sarah's eyes as she felt the truth of Lily's words. This wasn't just a battle for survival. It was a chance to free them, to sever the chains that bound these tortured souls to their torment. "But how?" "I see you," Sarah shouted, projecting her voice into the shadowy mass. "I see the pain in your eyes. You don't have to hide in the darkness anymore." A sudden stillness enveloped them, the air heavy with anticipation and uncertainty. The shadows flickered, morphing between sorrowful faces and twisted forms, confusion swirling in their depths. "Do you even understand?" A voice boomed, powerful yet laced with desperation. "The darkness we wear is all we have left. To unmask us is to destroy what little we cling to. But without hope, you are just echoes." Sarah was shouting now, her own fear turned to fervor. "You can turn from this. Let me show you." With that, she pulled Lily closer and drew in a deep, shuddering breath. "Yes." Together, Lily shouted, her childlike voice bolstered by an unexpected strength. "We can help you. We can bring you back." In that moment, a strange and powerful energy surged through Sarah, igniting hope and fear into a potent concoction. She felt an overwhelming connection to the figures before them. The shadows shivered, and in their writhing, a glimpse of souls flickered like candle flames, faces of despair and longing that needed her love, her courage. Just as she thought they might break through, the howling returned with a vengeance. "Lies, all lies. You only seek to bind us deeper." Suddenly, the blackness amplified and underwent a shift, growing thicker and more palpable, swirling like a storm about to break. It loomed overhead, ready to unleash its wrath. "You will never know the truth. Embrace your fears. for they are all you have left. The shadows surged, and a powerful wind whipped around them, threatening to tear Sarah and Lily apart. She could feel the walls of despair closing in. The very air turned into poison. "Mommy!" Lily screamed, her voice lost to the gales. Sarah reached out, determined to shield her daughter, but the howling consumed everything. The world narrowed into a black abyss, the shadows closing in once more, squeezing the light between them. And as the darkness loomed, Sarah realized the truth rippling through her, a revelation that echoed in every part of her being. What would happen if she confronted her own darkest fears? What if the only way to break this cycle was to face the memories she had buried deep? Lily clutched her hand tighter, pulling her back from the edge, whispering fiercely, "You can do it, Mommy. I believe in you." With her heart pounding against the terror, Sarah mustered every ounce of courage she had left. But could she confront the darkness waiting to consume her? Or would it seal their fates in shadow forever? The answer danced just beyond reach, shimmering in the depths of fear, and time felt suspended as the shadows drew near. The darkness hissed, a furious wind whipping around them, swirling with residual anguish. Shadows flailed against the pulse of light, trying to wrap Sarah and Lily in their suffocating embrace. Every flicker of warmth pushed against hopelessness. But they couldn't give in. "Not now. Remember, Lily," Sarah shouted, her voice echoing with fierce determination. "You are my light. We're stronger together." She felt Lily's hand tighten around hers, a reminder of her resolve. The connection between mother and daughter surged, like a tiny pulse shaking the very ground beneath them, and that heartbeat of clarity. Sarah drew on everything she had ever shared with Lily: first steps, backyard games, stolen moments of laughter. With every cherished memory, the energy around them brightened, forcing the shadows to cower. "You think you can silence us with fear?" Sarah cried, her heart racing. "You are mistaken." The intense shadows wailed in response. Sarah could hear their twisted shrieks filter through layers of resentment and sorrow. It was a cacophony of tortured souls, each cry weighted by despair. "You do not understand," one voice screeched, coiling on itself. "You cannot free us." But they had to believe otherwise. She could feel their pain in the air, a palpable weight pressing down on her. "You are wrong," she retorted, a fierceness bubbling within. "Your torment only strengthens you if you let it. We can rise from this." Gritting her teeth, she lifted her chin defiantly. "None of you are forgotten. Remember who you once were." With each pulse of her voice, shadows flickered, revealing glimpses of faces twisted in sorrow, remnants of lives snatched away. But there was something else beneath it all. A flicker of hope spiraled in the background, a desire for liberation. "See them, Mommy?" Lily breathed, her voice shimmering with light. "Their pain comes from being alone. They want to connect." Determined, Sarah reached out, squaring her shoulders. "Listen to us," she shouted into the swirling mass of darkness. "You're not alone. We can guide you back." A mother's love washed over them like a soothing tide. In that moment, it happened. The air trembled, the shadows flickered, and from within the abyss, figures began to emerge, faces once obscured, now visible, bearing expressions of longing and grief. A wave of clarity washed over Sarah. She remembered their laughter, their joy, the heartbeats of countless memories they could relive if they chose to. "Together we can find the light. You have a choice." The shadows hesitated, swirling uncertainly as Sarah's aura pulsed around them, illuminating their grotesque forms. "Don't fear." Lily's innocent voice rang out, vibrant and clear. "Let us help you remember who you truly are." With each phrase, the shadows dimmed, revealing not just lost souls, but reflections of those who hadn't turned dark. Sarah began to see more vivid silhouettes, friends and strangers alike, whose lives had crumbled beneath the weight of despair. A gnashing scream erupted from the collective, a surge of disbelief clashing against Sarah's steady resolve. "You want our pain," they cried, voices rising in an angry chorus. "It is all we have." "No," Sarah shouted back, her voice firm with conviction, resonating with love's warmth. "Pain does not define you. You can redefine your purpose." What do you know of our torment? A shade roared, its form flickering dangerously close. You are here and we are trapped. I'm trapped too, Sarah countered, breathless with urgency. But together, we can break free the memories we share. The lives we've lived, they unite us. We don't have to stay lost any longer. And with that declaration, a surge of light unfurled from within her, bright as the dawn. The shadows recoiled, wrapped in their own malice, 100 faces twitching in pain. But the darkness, volatile and twisting, wouldn't give up so easily. Then we will consume your love, it bellowed, morphing into a towering behemoth of anguish. A rage different from before washed over the shadows, and they surged toward Sarah, mounting an offensive. Fight it, Sarah, Lily cried, fear twisting her small features, yet she remained brave, eyes shining bright. Vibrating now, Sarah felt the power of connection surge, the embers of pure love invigorating her with tremors and shudders. You are my strength. Rallying herself, Sarah focused on every laughing moment, every cherished experience, and within it, she found a catalyst. I choose to love, she shouted into the void, allowing the warmth of her heart to bathe her in light. Every flicker igniting flames of courage with a primal yell. She unleashed the force, radiant beams pouring into the shadows that danced around her. The darkness hissed, thrashing against the assault, unfurling into a chaotic storm. You think love can save you? She shrieked, raging against the light. Yes, Sarah roared back. Love has no bounds. It is the force that breaks chains. We can be reborn together. In that moment, the darkness faltered. Tendrils of despair recoiled, unraveling into a haze of wisps, exposing radiant souls trapped within. Echoes of laughter began filling the air, painfully beautiful, and with every eruption, Sarah felt herself grow stronger. Each voice, every soul swelled within her, buoyed by their collective yearning for release, merging as a wave of brilliant light cascading through the abyss. What are you doing? The shadows screamed, their once powerful form now a mass of confusion. You cannot take our essence. We are becoming. Sarah shouted, her voice fiery, emboldened. We are light. We are love. We are memories. With that, the shadows crumbled under the force of her conviction. What had once been powerful figures twisted in agony began to transform, flickering into radiant forms actualizing before them, and an explosion of luminescence. Clarity unfolded, shimmering like sunlight piercing through even the deepest of clouds, painting the space in a brilliant tapestry of memories and connections that reverberated across dimensions. Time seemed suspended as Sarah and Lily emerged from the glowing sea, and hand in hand, they finally broke free. The last remnants of shadows faded into wisps of smoke, evaporated under the brightness of their resolve. Mommy! Lily exclaimed, twirling as light enveloped them. We did it. Yes, my sweet, Sarah breathed, tightening her grip on her daughter. We found the way. The diner around them crumbled like old parchment, each reminiscence transforming into ethereal bursts of laughter, a celebration of innocence reclaimed. They were no longer lost souls in a haunted diner. They breached into dawn, stepping free into a world washed clean of anguish. Can we help others? Lily asked, her eyes wide with wonder, the hope in her voice shimmering with a brighter truth. Absolutely. Sarah got choked up, melted into a smile. We will be their light. As they ascended into the warmth of morning's embrace, Sarah knew their bond could weave a brighter path. The diner's shadows were banished, and new stories awaited, ones full of color, laughter, and love, leading to a future the two would forge together. And in that moment, held in the glow of hope and possibility, Sarah realized love could conquer all, transforming shadows into echoes of joy. Now you need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this epic ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness the power of this conclusion. Only true fans understand the importance of your support. What are you waiting for?